Welcome to Stellar Sisters, the podcast where cosmic wisdom meets soul-enriching conversation.
We explore astrology, human design, and the unique blueprint of your soul, helping you understand yourself on a deeper level.
Consider this your permission slip to embrace the magic of being authentically you.
Let's begin.
Hi, and welcome back to Stellar Sisters podcast. This episode is part 2 of our birth stories. In this episode, we dive into our very raw and real birth and postpartum experiences. If you haven't listened to part 1 already, definitely go back and give that a listen, where we talk about all things conception and pregnancy. But yeah, we hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks so much for listening. Let's get into it.
So, just a little trigger warning for those of you who might be on your own journey with conception or pregnancy, or maybe you're going to give birth and you don't want to listen to these stories. That's totally fine. Please take care of yourself and just check in and see if, it's something you actually want to listen to. We'd love for you to listen to our stories, but if you're not in a place to listen right now, then just please listen to yourselves. And before we share our stories, we also want to just take a moment to acknowledge our privilege. As straight, white, cisgender women, we moved through pregnancy and birth with access to resources and support, and really just a level of safety that isn't available to everyone. So, it just means that other people, they can be faced with discrimination and bias and barriers that, we didn't have to face. So we just want to share our experiences that with awareness that, it's just our personal experiences within a much larger, complex reality. And everybody is so different. So, we know some will resonate with certain parts of our stories and some won't. And, that's totally okay.
It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then my birth, so I was admitted and started the induction process like Friday at like 4:30ish. And I didn't have my son until Sunday morning. So it was almost 48 hours, I guess, the whole process. So it was pretty long.
Yeah.
They started me with, I pretty much had every single induction method with like the pill that softens your cervix, Pitocin. I had the Foley balloon. And I wanted to go into labor naturally. That's what I really wanted. I didn't want to be induced. But because of my blood pressure, that is what happened. And, but honestly, none of the induction methods were awful to me. Like, people are like, the Foley balloon hurts so much. Didn't hurt me, you know? It really wasn't super bad for me. They started me on the Pitocin drip Saturday morning, and then I was having contractions all day, and they weren't horrible, but it was painful. But it was something that I could get through on my own. Like, I didn't ask for the epidural, but I do remember kind of standing up, and I was kind of standing onto Trevor, and he was putting pressure on my back to help me get through the contractions, because they were definitely more intense than like period cramps. It was in my back. I had like lower back.
I had those too. Yeah.
And then probably like Saturday, like late afternoon, early evening, they checked me, and I was still only like 2 or 3 centimeters. And I'm like, I've been laboring all day. Like, what do you mean?
Yes.
And I remember feeling very deflated. in that moment when they checked me and I wasn't like progressing at all. And I had a little bit of a breakdown on that day because I felt defeated. And I'm like, I really wanted to have him vaginally. Like, I did not want to have a C-section if I could all avoid it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't progressing. And am I going to have a C-section? Which, no, I mean, having a C-section, if that's your route, like, more power to you, but that is a major surgery,
Yeah.
that was something I didn't want to, if I could avoid it, I wanted to.
Right.
And then Saturday night, they actually finally broke my water, which isn't painful at all. It just like does feel like a pop. And as soon as that happened, my contractions went from like a 3 to a 10. Like it was immediate. It was so, so, so intense. Like I could
Yeah.
not talk. I couldn't even look at you. All I could do was like breathe and like get through that contraction. So when they
Yeah.
broke my water Saturday night was like when things really got going. And pretty much after that happened, like in between contractions, I looked at my mom and Trevor and I was like, I needed the epidural because it was so intense. Um, and but they don't come right away. Like just because you
No.
want it, like you have to wait till the anesthesiologist is ready.
Yeah.
And but the epidural was like a piece of cake for me, at least. It, it didn't hurt at all. I didn't feel it. Um, the hardest part is just like staying still through your contractions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as soon as that kicked in, it was amazing. I was able to go to sleep. I slept all night, Saturday night and Sunday morning. Woke up and the doctor came in, and I don't know what time it was. It was probably like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And the doctor was like, they checked me and I was 10 centimeters. And they're like, all right, are you ready to push? And of course, me being an astrologer, I was like, no, I'm not ready yet. Because I thought, I didn't look exactly, but I thought his rising sign might have been in Aries at that point, which I love Aries rising. I have nothing against Aries rising, but I knew his Pisces sun and Venus was in Pisces and Saturn was in Pisces. And if he was in Aries rising, all of that would have been in the 12th house. And I was like, no, I
And
don't want that
Neptune.
birth chart for my baby.
Yeah.
Like it's up to me anyways. It's not. If he was really meant to be born at that time, he would have. But
Yeah.
she was like, okay, like, and for some reason she was like, okay, I'll come back. Like, no worries. And I was like, okay. And so she did come back a couple of hours later. And I remember texting you. I was like, I'm about to push. I was like, it's either going to be a Taurus rising or a Gemini rising.
Yeah.
And I was terrified to push. I don't know if you had that experience. Were you like so scared when it came to start
Yeah.
pushing?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was so scared. But honestly, it was looking back now, it was my favorite part. Um, it was just like, I don't know. It was just so exciting because you're like about to meet your baby, but I was so afraid of like actually giving birth because I didn't know what that was going to be like, obviously. um, and it, I spent about an hour pushing because my contractions were so far apart at that point. So I would push for a little bit and then like there would be like sometimes up to 5 minutes in between my contractions. And you can only push when you have a contraction.
Yeah.
And so I spent about an hour pushing. And then finally and I remember the nurse being like, push hard, hard. And I was so pushing like as hard as I could. And they're like, he's right there. And I remember like taking a deep breath after the push. And I was like, what? because I was just so like, I was pushing with everything that I had. And then, obviously, finally he was born and born at the exact moment that he was meant to. And I know that because of his chart. Like he was not meant to come a minute before or a minute after that.
Yeah.
Um, and It was so easy. Um, Honestly, my delivery experience was so beautiful. Um, I didn't tear at all. I don't know how. I did not do anything to prepare for that. Like I didn't even eat dates. I didn't do anything. I think because he came like 2 weeks early, I just wasn't doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But he was a smaller baby. He was 5 pounds, 12 ounces. So I don't know if maybe that's why. Um, but again, I think I just got lucky with that.
Mm.
Um, but looking back, I was so afraid to give birth, but my birth experience, even with all of the induction methods that I had that I didn't want, it was relatively easy and like beautiful. And I think that I know that that's not everybody's experience, but I think those positive stories of delivery are important to hear,
So important.
you know,
Yeah.
because I had a lot of fear. I listened to a lot of birth stories
And
before
Chanel
I gave birth.
knows a lot about birth. Like she's trained to be a doula. She's read so many different birth books. She knows about the interventions and like the intricacies of interventions and what can go wrong with interventions. And
Hmm.
so maybe that played into why you were so nervous to give birth. But then
Yes.
having that easy, beautiful experience is such a great story to hear because I mean, I was scared too I was induced as well, and I'll go into my story in a second, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Like all the interventions, they were fine. It's like you can look at them as tools that are there to support you in a way. I know sometimes things can not go the way that you expect them to go, but I think if you kind of change your perspective and say like and check in with yourself, is this something that I feel like is going to support me in my pregnancy, in my birth experience, in my journey? It's there for that reason, and it can be supportive. It doesn't have to be this like terrible thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think because it was like my first pregnancy and my first, delivery, and I was worried about my blood pressure, I felt, I always kind of thought that maybe I would have a more natural birth or with a midwife or in a birthing center or something like that. But when I got pregnant, it just didn't feel right, and I just went
Yeah.
with what felt right. Um, and, while I think that there are many issues with standard prenatal care in this country, um, because I was educated myself and I researched things about birth and nutrition and what to expect in your pregnancy because I did that research. I felt more comfortable, but like it,
Mhm.
I had no knowledge and was just relying on my OBs. Like it would have been a different experience, I think.
Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's one thing we have in common. We both did our own research in different ways on pregnancy and birth and knew certain things about it. So, sometimes you hear something from a doctor and just like, oh, yeah, like I better do what they say. But if you've done
Hmm.
prior research and you know that there can be risks, but, maybe there's different risks if you don't do it versus if you do it and kind of weighing those and seeing which one is better for you. And if you don't do any of the research ahead of time, you don't know what you don't know. But
Right.
having some of the information and knowledge can make you make, a more informed decision in the end.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, that's my birth experience. It was relatively positive,
Yeah.
um, and easy, and I would do it again.
Yeah.
So Yeah. What about you, Sid?
Mine's different. um, okay, so my I went in for my appointment. It was a Monday. I was 40 plus 3. And I had been doing all the things, curb walking, the mile circuit, eating dates, raspberry tea, acupuncture, massage, like trying to do anything, to start something. And when I went in, I was checked. I don't think I was dilated at all, but my blood pressure was high. So the doctor on call, or the doctor that checked me was like, you need to go to the hospital. And you're just you're not prepared for that. I wanted it to happen naturally. I wanted my water to break at home. I wanted to labor at home for a while before I actually went to the hospital. I knew I wanted to have a hospital birth, my first baby. I knew I wanted to be under the care of an OBGYN, but I did hire a doula, and I wanted to, do as much as I could at home before I actually had to go to the hospital. I
Hmm.
have a lower pain tolerance, I would say. So I knew in the back of my head, I wanted to do it without an epidural, but I also was like, if I need one, I'm going to get one.
Hmm.
Um,
And they always say it's different if you get induced versus if you just go into labor naturally. They say if you're induced, the contractions are
yes,
stronger and harder and more intense.
right. And then also, if you get induced, they say that you can then have all the different interventions that then can eventually maybe lead to a C-section,
Hmm.
which of course I didn't want to do that if I didn't have to. Um, so yeah, when I was at my appointment, I was just kind of disappointed because I was like, well, I'm not ready for this to happen yet. And it didn't necessarily have to happen that day. I could have still said no to being induced, but we ended up going home, grabbing our bags, calling my parents to come take care of the dog. And we went to the hospital, and in the back of my head, I was like, okay, this is definitely it. Like, I knew I was going to get induced that day, even though I was like, I'm not going to make a decision until, everything's checked. And, they did all of the tests like they did at 30 weeks when my blood pressure was high then, and everything was fine. I didn't have preeclampsia or anything. My urine was clear. Um,
Oh yeah, and just to be clear, in my story as well, I did not have preeclampsia either. Like
yeah.
my urine was clear. It was just the increased blood pressure that
Yep.
the doctor was like, it could have led to
Yeah.
preeclampsia.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what mine was. And still, like, I almost was going to say no and leave that day. Um, but I ended up staying, and the one doctor was on call that I really liked. He didn't end up delivering my baby. Another doctor was. She was excellent as well. But the one that was on call, we were just, I was talking it through. He was such a super calm, like no pressure doctor, just such a great energy to be in the room, versus some of the other ones I ran into.
You had a male doctor?
Yeah, not for delivery, but he was my favorite one.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never had a male OBGYN.
I've actually
I
had a lot of
really?
yeah.
I think it's weird.
It
Like,
is weird.
yeah, I
It
don't
is
know.
kind of weird, but some of them are weird, but I have run across two that have been excellent. One
Yeah,
when I lived in LA, he was so good. Once I moved up, like an hour outside of LA, I would still make the trip down to see him because he was so good.
yeah.
And then this one, um, in Chester County, he is excellent and just like such a calming person. He has 3 kids himself, and I just really trust him as my doctor. Um, and I was happy that he was there to help me make that decision. And the one thing that he said was like, "You're not going to get a better baby if you wait." And just him saying that, and I don't know if he was saying that to just kind of like he wanted me to do an induction, and if he was, fine. But that was the thing that I was like, yeah, like what am I trying to do? Like if my blood pressure keeps staying high, it's only going to hurt her in the end.
Hmm.
So I was like, all right, let's just do this. And terrified. And I had to wait in triage for a long time. So triage is like just like a super small, almost like a closet room that you wait in until you actually get your room because all the rooms were full of other women giving birth.
Hmm.
And so I got induced around 1 o'clock on a Monday. And my due date was actually August 19th. So it was August 22nd when I got induced. And I think it was a Leo until like 11 o'clock that night. And I thought for sure that I was having a Leo my entire pregnancy. Like I was like, oh, I'll probably go a little early. Like definitely going to be a Leo. Like no thought ever that she would be a Virgo.
I thought Leo too.
Like I was adamant that she was going to be a Leo. And it's just so funny that she does end up being a Virgo in the end. And that was just such a shock to me. But just one thing to say about that, when I was like, I don't know, I was in my third trimester, and my aunt has this spiritual shop, and she has a bunch of crystals and stuff. And I went in there to pick like a stone or a rock for my daughter, and I was gravitated towards this stone that was like half, it almost looks like half ocean, half beach. So like half water, half earth. And it's like turquoise and white and like gray, like sand and water. And I remember being like, it's weird that I'm not drawn to like something more fiery. Like she's gonna be a Leo. It's weird that I'm not drawn to something more red or orange. And then she comes out and she's has so much water in her chart. She's a Cancer, moon Cancer rising and a Virgo sun. And she is like that earth and water. So it's
Yep.
so funny that like that rock just like totally symbolized that. But I couldn't get a
That's
read.
so funny.
Like I was always asking, like, just trying to connect with her and ask her, like, what's your birthday going to be? Are you going to be a Leo or a Virgo? Like anything? Like, can you give me a day? Like, and she wouldn't give me anything, nothing. Like I just felt like I couldn't connect to her or get any information from her. Towards the end, I did have a dream that like she was outside at our new house and she had this like dark brown hair. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna have like a blue-eyed blonde hair kid, because that's what I had when I was a baby and a kid.
Hmm.
And my husband had really blonde hair when he was little, but she has brown eyes and she has like strawberry blonde hair, I'd say, like
Hmm.
or like light brown strawberry-ish color. But when I was in triage and they put the ultrasound on just to make sure she was in the right position, like they just look really quickly, it was this full dark head of like dark hair because her hair was like a dark brown when she first came out and she had a lot of hair. And it's just so funny. Like I had a dream a few days before that she was going to have this dark hair. And then they put the ultrasound on and she had hair and it was dark. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so get induced. I had Cervidil. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I had that too.
They put like the string up you.
Yes.
That was uncomfortable. I think I was super inflamed down there because every check that they did was so painful to me.
Mm.
Anytime they checked to see if I was dilated, I thought that was like one of the most painful experiences. I hated that.
That's funny because that was not painful for me at all.
Yeah.
But I know that that is painful for other women.
Yeah. That was really painful. And then, so I was in triage from 1 p.m. until I think we got into our room finally at like 10:30 that night. So we were in there for a while, just kind of waiting. And then once I got into the room, it was super hot. It was August. It was humid and hot outside. And the air conditioner wasn't working too well in the room. And I was just hot and kind of uncomfortable. And
Kudos to you for being pregnant throughout the whole summer.
I don't
I
know
was
how I did it.
so hot throughout my entire pregnancy, and
Yes.
thank God it was winter because I would literally just go outside without a coat on and like be totally
Yeah.
fine. That's how hot I was being pregnant.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was, I don't know how I did it. I really don't. I was so hot, but I made it through. Um, so so then I don't know, it was nighttime and I had a really good experience in the hospital. Like my care was really incredible. The doctors were all great that I encountered. None of them pressured me. Like I felt like I was worried that people were going to pressure me into doing things that I didn't want to do and try to speed up the process and make me go through birth quickly. My mom with me had a good experience. I mean, she was in labor for like 4 days. She had a midwife and it was a natural birth and like, they took their time and everything was great. But then she had my sister on Thanksgiving Day and the doctor just he was impatient and she wasn't coming quick enough, so he just had her go in for a C-section. And there was nothing wrong. And he just did it because it was Thanksgiving and he wanted to get home to his family. And I just that's terrible. So then her third baby ended up being a C-section by default because back then I don't,
She already had one.
yeah,
Yeah.
she already had one. And I don't think VBACs were really a thing back then. So I was worried because of that, because of my mother's experience. And I didn't want someone to rush me into all these different interventions and then end up with a C-section that I didn't need to have.
Yes, yes.
And I had
And
heard
that's
of
what I
other,
was afraid of too, but I did have
yeah,
a generally like fine experience with that.
right. So my care, like I really enjoyed all of the nurses and the doctors. They were great, except this one night nurse. Like I remember her coming in and I wasn't progressing too much and I wanted to do it naturally. Like I didn't want to get the epidural yet. And she was like, "All right, that's fine, but you need to be moving around and, getting on your ball." And I'm exhausted at this point. Like I would like to sleep for a little bit. So I remember falling asleep and her coming in and like checking on me. And I felt like I had woke up pretty quickly and she was like, "You were pretty passed out. Like you need to get up." And just the way she was talking to me and like looking at me like just the weirdest look. Like I almost felt like she was like just condescending and like almost making fun of me in a way. I don't know what for. I don't know how to explain it, but she just gave off a terrible energy. I'm so glad she was just my night nurse and I didn't really have to interact with her much. But
Yeah.
I know some people can encounter some rough care, but overall, I had some great nurses. Like they were amazing.
I had really great nurses, except for the nurse that I had when I delivered. She was like a nurse there for like 30 years in the L&D unit. And
Yeah.
so she was just like, this was like routine for her. She was very much like, you do this and you do this and I do this and, you get a push and whatever. And the other nurses that I had, they were younger and so amazing. But I
Mm-hmm.
felt like she was a little bit like impatient and was
Yeah.
just like was so used to, like this was so routine. She's like sees births every day that she was just like
Yeah.
not phased by it.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't love that. I didn't love that for the nurse when I delivered,
Mm-hmm.
especially
Yeah.
because after birth she was like cleaning up the room and like running around, and I was like, I wish she would just get the fuck out of the room. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah. And during this time, that just made me remember that my water broke like in the night sometime during when I had this night nurse.
oh,
And this is my
naturally with the induction.
Yeah, and this is my first baby. Like, I don't know what a water breaking looks like. And side note for anyone who's never given birth, once your water breaks, you're continually leaking water until you give birth. Like, fluid is just coming out of you this whole time. I didn't know that. So, my water breaks, and it actually broke while I was going to the bathroom. It like broke while I was sitting on the toilet. And there was like, if you have the baby's stool in your water, like that's a cause for concern. And it wasn't totally clear. Like there was some maybe blood that came out with it. I don't know. I didn't know if what was normal. So I asked her to come look at it. I was like, my water just broke, I think, and I don't know if this is normal or not. And she just looked at me like so annoyed, like rolled her eyes and just like was like
Hmm.
annoyed that she had to look in the toilet to look at my like I wanted her to check that everything was cool. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And nurses should be very used to that kind of thing.
So, and she just like kind of peeked and was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And I was just like, "Okay. Okay, cool." Like it just I'm glad that she was there for that time and I didn't have to encounter her again. But moving on. So this is now Tuesday during the day. I don't think I was very far along, maybe like 3, 4 centimeters. And it was so painful. The contractions were so painful to me. I thought they were excruciating. Um, and so I ended up getting some kind of pain medication through my IV. I'm not sure what it was. And I know they gave me the Pitocin around this time, I believe, or maybe that was like in the middle of the night. I had Pitocin and it just wasn't progressing like all day long. I was having contractions on and off and I was exhausted and I remember just being in so much pain and wanting to call our doula to come help, but she was like, "Oh, I can only be there for 24 hours once I come." So, you know, it was almost like she was like persuading us to not have her come. And I think doulas can be incredible, but mine was really good at explaining things to me. Like was good for the emotional support, but she wasn't really good for the physical stuff. Like I had this fan that wrapped around like my hospital bed. And I remember her being like, "Oh, that fan's great. Where'd you get that? You'll have to send me the link so I can add it to my doula bag." And she didn't bring a doula bag to the hospital. Like she didn't have anything. She just used like she pressed on me with her hands and like she was good at like if something happened, she would explain it to me so I could think about it again and hear it again a second or third time. So that was nice, but overall, and like she gave Ben a little bit of relief. Like he could feel like he could leave the room so he could go eat something and have a break while she sat with me. But overall, I don't know if I would hire a doula again. I know what questions I would ask a doula again if I was going to hire one.
What
I
are
think it was
they?
um I would ask them how they would participate in my birth. Like, what are you physically going to do to participate there? Because she was good at explaining everything, but she didn't really participate much. And like, I had essential oils in my bag. I had playlists ready to go. I had like massage tools and different things that I had brought, like towels to like rolled up towels to have them put in ice water and then have someone put them on me. My air conditioner wasn't really working. Um, and then I ended up having a fever during birth. And I was like, it's hot in here. The air conditioner is not working. And I just kind of felt gaslit by that because I had the fever. So people just thought that I was hot because of the fever. But the room, like, it was hot. Ben said it was hot. My mom said it was hot. Um, but like, no one, and I will give Ben the benefit of the doubt that this is his first baby too. It's his first, like, he's kind of freaking out, doesn't know how to really support me. We did take a birth class, but you kind of forget all of that stuff when you're in the hospital. And she
Yeah.
wasn't like, "Sydney, where are your essential oils? Like, can I set up your playlist for you? Can I do this and that?" And because I was in so much pain and have such a low pain tolerance, I really kind of turned inward and like I
Hmm.
knew what I wanted and needed, but I couldn't voice it. Like I was just kind of laying there like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And it sounds so weird explaining it, but like I couldn't get it out like what I needed and like
Hmm.
how people could support me and help me.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think go if I did it again, I would definitely sit down and really explain how I want to be supported, how I want you to communicate with me. Like this happened last time, I don't want that to happen again, you know? It was
Hmm.
just
Yeah. Or
such an
like write it
internal.
down and have some sort of a birth plan. I did
Yeah.
not have any sort of a birth plan
I
written.
did have a birth plan, but it was more so like I want to do it naturally. I don't want to be pushed with interventions like that kind of stuff. It wasn't like a plan for the doula because I didn't think I needed it. She was doing doulas, birthing babies, helping birth babies for 15 years. I think she was just kind of burnt out at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so let's see. I ended up getting the epidural, but this wasn't until like 5 o'clock on Tuesday. So I had already been in labor for over 24 hours before I ended up getting the epidural. I think I was probably like 5 centimeters at this point. And I mean, I agree with you. The epidural, I was really scared to get the epidural, but I didn't really even feel it go in. The hardest part was just staying still for it.
Mhm, mhm.
And do they numb you before they actually put the needle in? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
I can't
I
even
don't remember.
remember. I remember being nervous about it, but like the nurse I had at the time like was really good at just like holding my hands and grounding me through it and then
Yeah.
left the room so I didn't have to watch it. It was
Yeah, well, they don't allow anybody else in the
yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a that was a positive experience for me. I mean, the pain was bad, but the epidural was helpful, kicked in, but mine only lasted, I'd say, like I really didn't feel anything for a couple hours and then it kind of started to fade. And even when I would press the button for more medicine, I could feel once she got to 10 centimeters, like I felt the pressure of her head kind of drop down. I was like, I think something just changed.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. And then I felt pushing the whole time. I felt the ring of fire of her coming out. I did end up tearing and I felt them stitching me back up. Like every stitch that she put in, I felt that. So the epidural worked and it was nice. Like I definitely get one again, I think. Um, but mine did start to wear off. So that was rough at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mine was pretty good. I mean, like I was completely numb, except for when I did start pushing, it did start to wear off a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could feel my contractions. Like it wasn't painful, but I could just feel the pressure of the contractions. So like I
Yeah.
knew when one was coming and when I needed to push. And I remember saying to my doctor, like as I'm like pushing, I'm like, my epidural is wearing off. She's like, that's okay, because you're not really gonna need it anymore. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
God. But I didn't feel like the ring of fire or anything like that.
Oh, I felt a lot of it. Like it offered relief, but then, and I think I took a nap once I got it and had like the peanut ball in between my legs. And the peanut ball really helped me progress for, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I had
Um,
that too.
yeah. And then when it came time to push, I think it took me about an hour to push her out too. And I had taken a whole pushing class on like how to push correctly and not purple push. So like what they want you to do is hold your breath and just like push as hard as you can. And that can cause you to tear and can cause other things that I can't remember. But I took a whole like class on how to push and like how to help your pelvic floor and like, all these different things. And the nurse came in and this was a, like, I don't know, I'm like my fifth nurse at this time. My delivery nurse was good, but I liked some of the other ones better. And she basically wanted me to purple push. And I was like, I don't want to purple push. And
Yeah.
she was kind of pressuring me to push like right away. And I was like, no, I need like a second. So, like, there, I asked for a little bit more time just so I could push the way I wanted to. But in the end, I
That's
don't,
really nice. I like that
yeah,
because I think I think that I did feel a little bit of pressure, not from my doctors, but from that nurse that I was talking about, like
yeah,
to like push and get him out as fast as possible. It's like where do you have to be, lady? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And but again, it's your first time giving birth, you don't really know.
yeah.
So how do you not purple push? Do you remember what they told you to do instead?
No, and I took a whole class on this. It's like more so using your pelvic floor and like your abdominal muscles to help you push than just like holding your breath and pushing. You're supposed to use
Mhm.
like more so those lower muscles and
I think they told me to just poop or push like you're
like you're
taking a poop.
pooping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did. I think I ended up like the last push to push her out was like holding my breath, purple pushing. Um, and I did end up tearing like a second-degree tear, which was super painful and hard. And I did feel them stitching me up but during my whole birth, like I was in a lot of pain. I thought it was super painful. I didn't enjoy it. It was not something that I thought was enjoyable. And I remember asking one of the nurses, I was like, how many kids do you have? She was like, two. And I said, why would you ever do this a second time? And like, I think I said that to a couple different people that I encountered in the hospital. And then once I finally pushed her out and they put her on top of my chest, like through my whole birth, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. And then they put her on my chest, and I was like, oh, I see why people would do this a second time. It's just amazing once you finally get to see your baby and all the work you just did, you know.
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
for sure. Um, yeah, when they put that baby on your chest, I think at first I was in a little bit of shock, like,
yeah,
holy cow, this is my baby. Like I did it. Like I did it. I gave birth,
yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I do remember Trevor and I both were just literally on cloud nine. Like
Mm-hmm.
the like the, especially the first few days after he was born. It was like magical,
Yeah,
we were just like in awe of this perfect little baby.
I know.
And I remember when we got home, I was laying in bed with the baby, and Trevor was standing in the doorway, and he goes, I already want to do this again. Oh, and then after going through everything postpartum and now having a 1 year old, we're like, we need a little bit more time before we
Yeah,
do this again because like this is really hard. But
yeah, yes.
but it is magical. And I do feel lucky that I did bond with my baby right away because I know that that's also not every woman's experience, and
Mm-mm.
um that's totally normal too. It can be very normal.
Yeah. Well, how was your postpartum?
Um, so postpartum, I thought my baby would sleep. And I know that's a big thing. And everyone says, well, you're never going to sleep again, and blah, 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 blah. But my mom always told me, so I was born September 30th. My mom's birthday is October 19th. And she always says, the first birthday gift you ever gave me was you slept through the night on my birthday when I was 19 days old. And she's like, you were always a great sleeper. I never had an issue with you sleeping. So, like, I'm like, perfect. I'm going to have a baby that sleeps. Like, I don't know. And I did not have a baby that slept. Um, and I think the first couple of months, like the first 3 months, it wasn't awful. He would wake up every couple of hours, and obviously they need to eat like every 2 hours when they're
Yeah.
newborns. I think I was okay with that the first couple of months. And then the 4 month sleep regression came, and it got really worse. It got really bad. And but I was like, this is just the regression. It'll get better. And then months 5 and 6 came. And, I kept hearing stories about other babies. They're like, oh, my baby's starting to sleep through the night. My baby's starting to do longer stretches in their crib. And that just was not my experience at all postpartum with him. He wanted to be held 24/7, which is a very normal baby thing.
Yeah.
But this may sound naive, but I didn't know that like your baby will not want to be put down at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially those first couple of months of life. Like, I envisioned them sleeping for a couple of hours in their crib
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, me too.
That did not happen for me. And for some people, their babies do that, but my son is not like that. He wanted to be held 24/7.
It's so hard.
And that was really, really, really rough because there was just there's no time for you.
Mm-mm.
I didn't have a lot of help. It was really just me and Trevor doing that. And yeah, the sleep deprivation was so real. I've
Yeah.
Never been that sleep deprived. That was really, really, really tough. Um, and at 7 months, he still was. I think because this was my first baby, and because like I was hearing other stories of other parents, like their babies were starting to sleep longer stretches and sleeping through the night, I thought, okay, well, he's going to do it. Like, we just need to like ride this out and he's going to start sleeping better. And it, instead of getting better, it actually just like kept getting progressively worse. I think because he became like more aware of like when he was being held and when he wasn't, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then we started co-sleeping when he was 7 months. And that was really my saving grace. Um, that gave me some sleep back,
Yeah.
um, because I was just so desperate for sleep.
Yeah. And you
um,
have to do that. Sleep deprivation is so real and it's so hard to function and do anything when you're so tired.
yeah,
And if you have to co-sleep, then you co-sleep.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I looked up all of how to safely co-sleep and the safe seven they call it, and co-sleeping. um but it's so normal. Like, I wish someone would have told me like, hey, you might not be able to put your baby down. Your baby might not want to sleep alone at all. I didn't know that. I thought babies, like, you could rock a baby to sleep and then they would lay down and go to sleep. And he
Hmm.
maybe did that for like the first week or so, but then when they start to wake up a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like not the case. And it is so demanding, as a caregiver. And breastfeeding was a whole other journey for
Yeah.
me.
Me
It was so
too.
hard and so stressful. So you're sleep deprived. My hormones were so insane. I was so emotional. I was so, I also think that I had some sort of postpartum anxiety because any little thing that he did or didn't do, I was
Hmm.
worried about, and I was Googling, and I was like, if he slept too much, I would be worried. If he didn't sleep enough, I would be worried. If he ate too, it's like no matter what he did, like
Yeah.
I couldn't win, you know? I was so anxious about everything that I was doing as a parent, about everything that he was doing, keeping him healthy. Mix that with crazy hormones. I've never been so emotional in my entire life. I felt so vulnerable. Like, it just
Hmm.
felt like you're walking around with like an open wound at all times. I just felt so vulnerable. And like being around like people in like the real world was so overwhelming for me.
Yeah. Me too.
Um, so no sleep, crazy hormones, the stress of breastfeeding, um, and trying to get him to latch properly,
Mm.
and then trying to pump on top of it. Um, I did breastfeed him and I tried to breastfeed him, but then he wasn't gaining enough weight and I wasn't sure if he was latching properly. And the lactation consultant that I had taken a class with when I was pregnant, I emailed her and texted her several times and ghosted me,
Oh, I
like
didn't know
no
that.
response from her.
Wow.
And when you're in that postpartum experience, you're so overwhelmed, you're so tired, you're so hormonal.
It's hard to even send a message to the lactation consultant.
Yeah, let alone find another one,
Right.
that
Yeah.
you. And so I started um, giving him formula at night because I wasn't sure what he was getting from me breastfeeding at night,
Yeah.
and so we would, I would get up, Trevor would make a bottle, Trevor would feed the baby, and then I would pump, every 2 hours a night. Just
Yeah.
insane. We were both so sleep deprived.
I know.
Um, and so I did end up just pumping for him for 5 months. But my supply wasn't enough. to just
Yeah.
feed him. So I was pumping and then also supplementing with formula, which was a whole, never in 1 million years did I think that I wouldn't be able to breastfeed. I never, like the guilt that I had about not being able to
Mm.
breastfeed and having so much trouble getting him to latch and getting my supply up. I'm okay. I've made peace with that for the most part now. But when you are so hormonal and so emotional postpartum, that was devastating.
Yeah. When you're going through it, it feels like this dark cloud over you that's just never going to go away.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hard. It was really hard. Yeah, I was not prepared for postpartum. I had this
Yeah.
beautiful pregnancy and this beautiful birth, and postpartum was 1 million times harder than I ever thought.
Hmm.
It is so hard.
And it's
Um,
something no one talks about, you know? I mean, I think people are starting to talk about it more now, but I don't know. It's just something people don't naturally talk about in life and just growing up. And you don't hear stories about, our moms or our people around us. Like you don't hear the postpartum stories. You don't
right.
really even have any inclination of what it's even like. People don't even say that, oh, I have this beautiful baby and they're healthy and, it's great. That's really like all you hear.
Yes.
And then you go through it and you're like, what? Why didn't anyone prepare me for
And you're
this?
like, am I the only one going through this? Because
Right.
everyone else seems to be having a great time.
Yeah,
What's wrong with me that I'm like struggling here?
exactly. Yeah.
You know, um, it is true that it is just a season
Yeah.
and it does go by fast. He's 13 months and things are night and day, from like those first months with him.
Yeah.
Um, you do kind of forget, at least I have,
Yeah, you do. I have too.
and also I think being a first time parent and going through all of that brand new, like I do think that having a second baby, that postpartum experience could be easier,
Hmm.
because you do know what to expect
Yeah.
now. You can maybe prepare yourself a little bit more for that. And I do think that I would be less anxious as a second time mom,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, um, it was really, really, it was really hard.
Hmm.
What about you?
I mean, I agree. It's postpartum. Even though I had a difficult pregnancy, I had a difficult, well, my birth wasn't so traumatic, but it felt difficult for me at the time. Like I thought it was so miserable. I hated my birth, even though, there are so many things that could have happened. But postpartum, just like you said, I did not know what to expect. I wasn't prepared for it. You know, you're going to have this new responsibility and baby to take care of, but you really don't understand how much work goes into it, and you're just pouring everything you have into this new baby. And you really are, you're still yourself, but you've kind of birthed this new version of yourself, and it's hard to kind of adjust to that in a way. I think I cried every single day for the first 2 weeks because I was just like, what did I do? Everything's different. Everything's changed. My entire life is different. Everything is different now. And
Mhm.
it's such a hard adjustment mentally, emotionally, physically, whether you do natural or C-section, it can be such a hard recovery. Um, just just a couple days after giving birth, I was still in the hospital, taken to a different wing to recover. And, they kind of just monitor you and teach you some basics on how to feed the baby and try to help you breastfeed. I saw a lactation consultant in the hospital. And like you were saying, breastfeeding was so hard. It seems like it's going to be this intuitive thing, like you just put them up and they start eating, and it's not. It's like this hard skill that you have to learn being sleep deprived. And some babies don't latch, and there's just so many different aspects that go into breastfeeding and just feeding the baby in general. It's like a
Hmm.
full-time
Which
job.
is so stressful.
It's so
I also saw a
stressful.
lactation consultant in the hospital who was zero help. Like she was no help to me whatsoever. Like I had no idea how to pump. I had no idea
Right.
like how to do any of that. And the lactation consultant was not helpful at all. And then I had like this angel nurse, like night nurse come in and she was like, well, you can try to breastfeed the baby and then you can pump after that and then try to give them that. And she like told me what to do because like freshly postpartum, I can't think. I was like,
No.
somebody tell me what to do and how to feed my baby,
Yeah, I know.
you know?
Yeah.
And she was an angel, but I do remember in the hospital, this was kind of messed up. And like, um, babies always lose weight after
Right.
they're born.
Yeah.
And so obviously, I don't know how much weight he lost, like the first day. They're like, he lost X amount of weight. And so there's like three different categories. There's like red category, orange category, and green category. And since he lost this amount of weight, he is in the orange category right now. Like, not red, but like not great. And I literally, it was like probably my first day postpartum. I started bawling
Yeah.
as when they told me that, when that person was in the room. I couldn't handle that. I
Yeah.
couldn't handle someone, my first day being a mom, and I felt like they were telling me, you're not being a good mom. You're not feeding
Right.
the baby.
Yeah.
I was a mess. And that was so, so hard for me. And then they just give you formula. They give you those little bottles of formula.
Right.
And I so, so, so wish that there was more breastfeeding support for women
I know.
that starts in the hospital
It should even
because
start when you're pregnant, and they should require that you,
why isn't that something that you talk about with your OBGYN?
I don't
Why
know.
isn't that something that the OBGYN, why is there a lactation consultant there at the practice?
Right.
There isn't in mine.
And like they can even look at your nipples and your boobs, and they can, a good lactation consultant can see different things, and based on your nipple shape they can recommend different things. There's so many different aspects that go into it. And like if someone could just look at that before you even give birth, maybe they could suggest a couple things so when they come out you're like, "Okay, yeah, maybe I should use this size nipple shield in the beginning and this will help with X, Y, and Z." Like you might be, able to kind of troubleshoot on your own if they would give you that education prior to giving birth.
Totally. Yes. And I remember I had given birth and Otto was on my chest and I started breastfeeding him right away. I put him on my boob and but I don't know what he's getting, but he's comforted
Yeah.
by that at least. And
Yeah.
then the mother baby nurse comes over, sticks a finger in his mouth, says, "Oh, he has a high palate. You need this nipple shield." And she gave me a nipple shield um to use and because that does kind of like hit the roof of their mouth, which stimulates the suck reflex, I guess. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And and then because I started using that nipple shield with him, he wouldn't nurse without it. And I tried. But like I wish that that nurse hadn't just gone to, "Oh, you need this nipple shield."
Right.
And
Yeah.
"Oh, you're not feeding your baby and he's lost too much weight." And "Oh, here's some formula." It just like mm, if I'm lucky enough to have another baby one day, that is something that I will prepare myself, try to prepare myself much better for, is breastfeeding, because I
Yeah.
really would like to breastfeed my next baby if I can. I
Mhm.
did not have a very big supply, but I don't know if that's because of the way my breastfeeding journey started, or I don't know if that's just like my body and genetics, but no matter what I did, I could not get my supply up to like be enough for him. And I don't know why. And I was so overwhelmed postpartum that it was just so hard to even think about that. But
Yeah.
I do wish that that's something that I prepared myself for better and that they supported you in the hospital more with.
Right. Yeah, I know. I wish there was so much more support around that. I also didn't have that big of a supply. I mean, I breastfed Faye till 14 months, but for the last feed, I would pump. So then I had some milk for her like next night bottle. And we always supplemented with formula pretty much from the beginning, I'd say, because I never produced enough. I mean, I think it's incredible how people can have their whole fridge stocked with all these milk containers and
Yeah, milk bags.
bags, but
That's what you see on social media. It's just like
yeah,
women pumping like bags and bags and bags of milk.
that was
And
not my
that's not
experience.
normal.
No.
That's like that's an outlier like experience. Like most women do not produce that much milk.
Yeah,
Which I
it
didn't know that either.
I mean, I never had backstock of milk. All I had was like, 4 to 5 ounces in a bottle for like her night feed, which then we would top with formula. So like we knew she was getting enough.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, I mean, I would breastfeed her through the day, but I didn't have enough.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that is just so stressful. Um, but a couple other things for my postpartum. I just remember being in the hospital and I was going on like 36 hours of not really sleeping from being in labor that whole time, pushing the baby out. That requires so much energy and, just giving birth in general. And then she was born around 2:30 in the morning. And then we finally got to the room, like our recovery room around 4:35 a.m. And then, all day you're being monitored and tested. I don't think we really slept that much during the day. And then that next night, Ben snored like all night and I barely got any sleep. And so we were going to leave that day. But I just remember being like, I need more support in the hospital of these nurses, like showing me what to do. And I knew that I couldn't sleep again if Ben was in the room snoring. I even had my white noise machine, I had my earplugs, but like he was on the other side of the room and kept waking me up. And I was so emotional because I was like, okay, we're gonna leave today. And then I was like, last minute, I was like, I need to stay here so they can help me with the baby and I can get some sleep before we go home.
Hmm.
And so I made the decision to send Ben home so he could sleep at home when I slept in the hospital. And then I sent Faye to like the nursery there. And they like kept her and fed her and took care of her for like 4 to 5 hours while I slept that night. And I finally started to feel slight relief from just being so sleep deprived.
Yes.
But I felt so guilty and I was so emotional for like sending her to the nursery because like my hospital was one that encouraged you to like just stay in the room with the baby. I think some
Mm,
hospitals just like they send the baby to the nursery for the 2 recovery days for the most part, but
mm,
mine was like very um I forget what they call it, but I liked that about that hospital. Like I wanted to be with her as much as I could, but there came a point where I was like, I need to rest so I can be there for her.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
th-
That's so real.
yeah,
Like I totally understand that.
it was so hard. And, there's just so many things after postpartum that happen. Like, I didn't swell during pregnancy, but after giving birth a couple of days later, like once I got home, my ankles and legs were so swollen and my feet. And it was just this terrible feeling. I hated that. And, I wanted to be outside and get some fresh air because you just feel like you're cooped up inside for days on end. So I remember going for like a couple walks and just my sneakers were really tight. And then my big toe ended up like having some infection. It was so painful and like just going to the doctor for that is so hard because you have this newborn that you're needing to feed every 2 to 3 hours. And now I have to leave to go see the podiatrist to see what's wrong with my foot. And then my epidural had some kind of reaction where I could feel the nerve pain coming up my spine, like all the way into my neck. And that was kind of terrifying. Like it just felt like this like trickly, tingly nerve pain. And I was like, is my spine going to break in half? Like what's going
Wow.
on? So
Yeah.
I remember having to go to the back to my OB to get checked for that. They said that was fine. And then they were like, you should call the anesthesiologist and talk to them because this isn't normal. It's not something we've encountered before. So I'm talking to him and he's basically like, well, there's not much to do. Like, let's just monitor and see if it goes away. So then I started going to the chiropractor and that seemed to help. But there's just so many things after you give birth. Like I bled for probably 6 to 8 weeks after giving birth. I didn't know that you continued to bleed after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Mine was probably about 6 weeks. Yeah.
it's just it's such a long recovery period and you don't get to the doctor checked until what is it, 6 weeks?
Yeah. They do 6 weeks.
It's like
And can you imagine that that's when some people have to go back to work? Like they're still
no,
bleeding from giving birth and they have to go
absolutely
back.
not.
Yeah. Crazy.
No, I cannot believe it. And yeah, it's just it was tough. I found the first weeks and months postpartum to be really hard. I mean, I did have a baby that, if you want to label it as easy, she was pretty easy. She started giving us like 5 hour stretches pretty quickly, probably after the first week. I mean, I still got up at 3:30 probably every morning to feed her for a while, but she slept in her like little crib in our room pretty well. During the day, she would mostly nap on me until probably around 3 months, and then she was fine. Like she transferred into her crib pretty easy for naps. She's always been a pretty good sleeper. So I think I had a relatively easy baby to care for, and she didn't really have any medical issues or any problems, but just the emotional and mental aspect of, and physical, I'd say is the last thing, but the mental and emotional part was so hard for me becoming a mom and just like I knew that I was going to have these new things to do and I was so excited for it. It's so magical. Like I'm obsessed with my daughter. She's amazing. You know, she's the best thing in my life. I love her. Like I feel like I shouldn't even have to say that, but there is this huge duality that comes with motherhood. And you can feel so magical and elated, but at the same time, just feel like you're almost in the depths of despair of how mentally and emotionally draining it is to be a parent.
Hmm.
It's so
Yes.
hard.
I mean, that's exactly it. And that's exactly how I felt too. I mean, that adjustment period of that immediate like postpartum period is, I think, especially with your first, I don't know because I only have one child.
Yeah.
I don't have more than one, but the drastic change in your life is, and you know that it's coming. You know that it's coming, but until
Yeah.
you experience that actually, like it's very hard to fathom what it's going to be like. Like the level of
Yeah.
self-sacrifice, like your needs do not matter at all anymore.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's hard to shower. It's hard to go to the bathroom. Like you just like truly don't even have time to do like some of those basic tasks for yourself. Unless
Yeah.
you are like so lucky and you have like, a nanny or like tons of family coming over all the time or something like that,
Right.
but even then, it's still so
Yeah.
hard.
Still so
Like no
hard.
matter how much support you have, I think.
Yeah.
But it's like such a major life adjustment. And yes, like my son is the best thing in the whole world. Like I love him more than I've ever loved anything in my life, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but postpartum is very hard. It's
Hmm.
super hard. And women and parents are, I have such another level of respect for them. Like truly,
Me too.
it's unbelievable.
It really is.
And one thing that I didn't mention is 6 days postpartum, I woke up with a throbbing headache, and I took ibuprofen and it didn't even touch it. It didn't even help at all. And that is one of the signs of postpartum preeclampsia.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know this, you can get postpartum preeclampsia up to 6 weeks postpartum.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 6 weeks. Don't exact quote me on that, but I think it's 6 weeks. And I took my blood pressure, and it was super high. And it had been like in the 150s, like pretty much the whole time in the hospital, even after I gave birth. And they gave me like a small blood pressure pill, but I don't think it really did anything for me. And I was taking that every day. But when I had that headache, I was like, I better take my blood pressure because I know that this is a sign of postpartum preeclampsia. And I took my blood pressure, and it was really high. It was like 180 over 100 again, something like
Wow.
that. And I was 6 days postpartum, and I was like, I have to go to the ER because it was a Saturday. Yeah, because Otto was 6 days old. And I went to the hospital, and they did test me for preeclampsia, and there was no protein in my urine and like no evidence of preeclampsia. Um, and they did give me blood pressure medication. And as soon as they gave me that pill, like I took it, and like within like a half an hour, I could feel like my headache, it was
Wow.
such a horrible headache. It started to um, like the pressure was relieved. Like my headache started to go down, my blood pressure started to go down. So I know it was that. And my OBGYN afterwards at my 6 week appointment, I really wanted to like process my birth and process that whole experience. And I was like, you know, she said that that was preeclampsia, that I did have preeclampsia. And I don't quite
Hmm.
understand that because if I didn't have like protein in my urine and things like that, like what's the difference between high blood pressure and like preeclampsia? Like I thought preeclampsia was you have to have that protein in your urine,
Yeah.
like all of that kind of stuff. So I don't quite understand that, and I still don't. And I felt like I wanted to like talk to her about that, but she wasn't like super open to. She just like was like kind of shutting my questions down.
Right.
Like I'm like, can't you help me like process this whole part of like my birth and understand like what happened there,
Yeah.
but like she wasn't like super open to that, and that was a little disheartening.
Yeah. I
But
mean, that last appointment is like 15 minutes and they just have you fill out a form that's like, are you depressed? And, ask you
I
a few
know, and if you say
questions.
no, it's like okay, you're good.
Right. And I mean, I think everybody experiences, I mean, maybe not everybody, but I think majority of people experience postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression in some way. I definitely
Mhm.
did. I definitely had the baby blues. When I fill out those forms, like I'm definitely not like at the end level where they would diagnose me with it, but I definitely experienced that, you know,
Mhm. Yep.
in some way.
Yeah, I remember like the nurse asking me, do you have little interest in doing things that would normally bring you like joy or something like that?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have any time to do
Yeah.
anything that brings me joy." Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
you think I have time to like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like make make a little craft? I don't know what you think like I'm doing here.
I know.
But um yeah. So that did happen to me with my blood pressure postpartum, and I was on blood pressure meds for like several months postpartum just to like make sure that that was in check, and my blood pressure has gone back down and is better now, but I did have to be on it longer than like what is like typical. Um
Yeah.
and I think that's just because of my genetics and family history and things like that.
Yeah,
But
but that's still scary and it's just another thing to handle when
yeah.
you have a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, being a mom, I mean, rocks your world
It
forever,
does.
you know. Um, I guess I would say around like 6 months, I started to feel a little bit better, and more used to everything. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
like, now it's just such a part of your everyday. And they get so much easier. And, that newborn stage is just so tough. But yeah, it's, it's real.
It is. That first year is hard, especially as a new parent. It's not
Hmm.
knowing what to expect. It's tough.
Yeah,
But yeah, it does get easier. And it's so much fun. I mean, being a parent is so fun. You get to experience life again through like their eyes and just watching them grow and learn like everything that they learn and everything that they do for the first time. It's just so special and magical. So I mean, it's such a gift to be a parent, but it is probably the hardest job in the world.
for sure. And those two things are allowed to exist together.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah. And now my son, he just started really walking, and it's so fun and so cute.
Yeah.
And he's really starting to like say words. Like he says mama, dada, banana. Um, he's trying to say doggy and kitty. Um, it's just like the best, cutest stage ever.
It is.
It's so freaking cute.
Faye, yesterday, we were sitting on the couch and she just turns to me and goes, I love you so much, mama, and like gave me a hug. And I was just like, it's just awesome. It's amazing.
Oh, that's so adorable. I can't
Yeah.
wait until Otto can like really talk and say sentences. It'll be so adorable to hear what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah. It is.
All right, any last final thoughts or words?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did. We did. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for listening to everything we had to say. We had a lot to say
Yeah, we
about
did.
all of this.
But it's important. It's important to share these stories. It's important to listen to them too.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Um, you know, and being a mom is the biggest blessing of my entire life, and I wouldn't change a thing. And you know, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, because like I said, I have such an intense, deep appreciation for everything that mothers do in the world, because it is the hardest job in the entire universe.
Me
And
too.
moms are magical, and they do the impossible every single day.
They do. Yes. Happy Mother's Day to every mom. And if you're not a mom or you want to be a mom, happy Mother's Day to you too. If you're a dog
Yes,
mom or whatever. And I becoming a mom has made me less judgmental towards anyone. Like, never judge another mom. You have no idea what they're going through. It is
oh,
so hard. And when I see people, I have so much more compassion for them now if they're doing something that I wouldn't do or don't necessarily agree with. Do what works for you. Like, every mom is the best mom for that baby, and they know what they need and they know how to get through the day with whatever they need to do. So,
could not agree more. Could not agree more. Like, I was just talking about how Trevor's going to be gone for like a week for work,
yeah,
and I'm going to need to use Miss Rachel for my son for
absolutely.
to take a shower in the morning,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm not going to shower all week, and I feel a lot of mom guilt about that, because I obviously don't want my kid to watch a ton of screen time, but you have to do what you have to do to get through the
Yeah. Yeah, you
day.
do.
And it's so real. So couldn't agree more. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you. If you resonate with anything, we'd love to hear from you. You can email or message us at Stellar Sisters on Instagram.
Yeah, let us know how your experience was and if you resonated with anything that we talked about.
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Bye.
Bye.